Have you seen this picture? Or perhaps this picture? Or maybe even this picture? Perhaps you have not. They were made by a man in the late Victorian era by the name of Louis William Wain, and he was tremendous. He drew quite literally thousands of pictures of cats. That's not an exaggeration. He drew a great many cats, and in doing so, he not only raised the social status of cats, but also brought simple pleasure to entire generations. And while he was once a household name, he is now, well, I wouldn't say completely forgotten. There was an Amazon Prime movie made about him. He is the artist with schizophrenia. However, I would say he is so much more than that. So much more. But before that, let's briefly introduce Louis Wain. Louis Wain was an artist by trade who drew a great many pictures of cats frolicking, getting up to mischief, and being little people in their own little world. And they were immensely popular. They were everywhere, on postcards, magazines, newspapers, books, on the walls of home nurseries, everywhere. Why, even H.G. Wells said of Wain on the radio, "He has made the cat his own. He invented a cat style, a cat society, a whole cat world. English cats that do not look or live like Louis Wain cats are ashamed of themselves." Cats would be very nearly everything he drew, though earlier in his career he was quite diverse in his drawings and especially focused on dogs, and later in his career he did draw landscapes, birds, fish, as well as cats. And despite his success and his far-reaching fame, he led a very difficult life. Around 1925-ish, he was institutionalized at Bethlehem Hospital. And while there, he drew a picture. Well, he drew many pictures, but we're going to focus on one in particular. "I am happy because everyone loves me." And this picture resonated with me. With my passing knowledge of the schizophrenic artist Wain, it was very sad. And I've found that it resonates with a bunch of people, especially online. There's something about this that really hits you emotionally. However, having looked much deeper into Wain, knowing Wain the man, knowing his character, knowing what he did during his life, I can truly say that he was happy because everyone loved him. And so today, I wish to discuss Louis Wain the character, the man, rather than the schizophrenic artist. Because when discussing him, most people tend to focus solely on that, the schizophrenic artist Wain, rarely, if at all, mentioning his character. And I think that does him a disservice, because he was so much more than the schizophrenic artist. And now let us discuss a much abridged, only the important bits for this video, version of Louis Wain's life. Louis William Wain was born in 1860 at Clerkenwell, London. He was the first child, an only lad among 5 younger sisters, and he had a rather hard childhood, being born with a cleft lip, which caused his peers to make fun of him. Later in life he'd grow a mustache to hide it, and along with that he was rather sickly. Jumping ahead, his schooling led him to become an artist, and he drew no cats at this time. However, that would change when in 1884, Wain married Emily Marie Richardson, his sister's governess and 10 years his senior. His family did not approve of the wedding, but he cared not. Anyways, here's the important bit. Louis and Emily took in a cat, and sources conflict on whether it was a stray or a gift. But in any case, they christened him Peter, and he was a beloved part of the family. They were happy for a short time, until Emily began suffering from carcinoma of the breast. She was eventually bedridden, and Peter became her constant companion. Wain wrote, "With my wife invalid to the house, Peter never suffered through inattention, loneliness, or thoughtlessness. His was the genius which gilded many a sorrowful hour and lightened many a burden. To him properly belongs the foundation of my career." Louis began teaching Peter tricks and drew pictures of him to amuse Emily, and she pressed him to offer the drawings of Peter to his editors. Now, Wain didn't think they'd be interested, We'll get into reasons for that later. However, after a small success in illustrating a children's book named Madame Tabby's Establishment, Wain decided to approach Sir William Ingran of the Illustrated London News and asked him for a Christmas commission. Sir William recognized Wain's talents and agreed. Wain worked for 11 days on 11 panels, which contained 150 unique cats, and its appearance in the Illustrated London News made him practically famous overnight. He claimed that after that, he hadn't any need for work because the commissions kept coming in. Emily was very, very happy for her husband, for really all she wanted was to see her Lewis succeed. However, her disease worsened, and after only 3 years of marriage, in 1887, Emily Wain died of exhaustion. Wain's father died in 1880, and his mother and 5 sisters, none of which married, repaired their relationship with Wain after his wife's death. Now, he had to support all of them. Money was always very tight, despite his fame at the time. And that's something we'll also get back into later. In any case, his career progressed and kind of stagnated, and by the time World War I came around, Wain was relatively forgotten and low on work. Deterioration of his mind began to set in, and he became suspicious and violent towards his sisters. And on Monday, June 16th, 1924, Lewis Wain was certified insane and sent off. Now let's pause here for a moment and discuss Lewis Wain the man, especially during the height of his career, that midpoint before World War I. You see, Wain was a creature unto himself. He was rather shy, diffident, and really only opened up once he got to know you. A certain Frank Burnand, editor of the Punch magazine, wrote a very verbose description of Wain, which will do much to illustrate his character here. When you meet Lewis Wain for the first time, you are struck with the intense sadness of the quiet, rather drawn, unsmiling face. You feel inclined to say, as the Florentine children of Dante, "Ecco, there is one who has been in hell." It is all changed when he begins to talk. He speaks rapidly, very low, few inflections of voice, face impassive. He never smiles, nor, however animated, does his face light up as he warms to a congenial theme. Whether he speaks of painting, sport, fencing, boxing, or the unseen world on which his reasoning is so original, so imaginative, and so reverent, you say to yourself, here is a man who thinks his own thoughts, a man who is determined to live every moment of his life so that he and others may be the wiser and better for it. These traits often led Wain to sell off his drawings for far less than they were worth, and to sell the copyright with them. For Wain was not really one wanting to bargain. And see, that's the problem. By selling the copyright, he didn't get any royalties every time his paintings were, well, reprinted. And so he was in constant need of work to keep the money coming in. Continuing on to his skills though, Wain was noted to be quite skilled at improvising on the piano. Wain also claimed to have composed several operas, but none of them were published and we really haven't seen any of them, so it's doubtful whether he did. Regarding drawing, he was ambidextrous, so sometimes he would draw 2 cats, one with each of his hands at once as a party trick. And oh boy, Lewis Wain was always ready to draw cats. There's a tale of this art event, right? With 50 or so of Wain's works being displayed. And after the event, the old doorkeeper was talking about it to a man who was sent to remove all the paintings. And he says to him, "Wonderful man that ere Wain. There's no other man," says the doorkeeper, "who can draw cats like him." "Have you a pencil?" asked the man. "Yes," says the doorkeeper, "and paper. There's a bit here somewhere." And before the doorkeeper could count to 10, a curiously humorous sketch of a cat winking its eye lay on the desk before him. It only wants one thing to make it as good as the others, and the man put his signature to it, Lewis Wain. Well, sources doubt the exact veracity of this particular story, but it is very well known that Wain would produce sketches of cats too surprised workers in banks, cafes, shops, really anyone whom he appreciated for some help or service given. And while surprised, this always delighted these workers. He'd also give very generously of his talents to various charities, making work to sell for good causes. Now, I did mention he wasn't very good with money, and so often he paid for utilities, services, food with paintings and pictures. For a time, his rent was paid this way, and a great many people generously accepted these as payment in lieu of real money. Only on very few occasions did Wain complain about his lack of wealth or continued success as the years rode on. Though he was popular, bills had to be paid. However, Wain remained very optimistic about the future and the successes he would have, rarely complaining to friends. And he was very fond of oranges as well. Now, I have mentioned Peter already, Louis Wain's first study in drawing cats. And Peter was a magnificent beast, in all of grace, cunning, and temperament. Louis Wain wrote extensively and very positively of Peter, as did many people who visited the Wain household and got to meet Peter as well. He was rather famous, you see. And it could very well be argued that our modern view of cats is almost entirely thanks to Peter. Wain, of course, but Peter especially. You see, cats were hated. Let me explain. The Victorian era did something very unique with pets, you see. Before that time, it was considered to be frivolous to own a pet and care for it. There were better things to save money for. However, the Victorians loved their pets, whether they were canaries, the odd chimpanzee, but especially dogs. Oh boy, the Victorians loved their dogs. You know the girls on dating apps who are like, yeah, if my dog doesn't like you, this isn't gonna work out. That was essentially Victorian men at the time. Dogs had qualities that the Victorians appreciated. They were intelligent, they were loyal, steadfast, brave, and because of that, they were seen as an ideal companion to have. Cats, on the other hand, oh no, cats snuck about. They had a nature that was calculating, malignantly cunning, ambushing their prey rather than facing them, in an honorable one-on-one duel. They were sly. They were even seen as witches' familiars, so they had literal connections to the devil. And because of that, they were reviled at worst as pests. And at best, they were seen as utility creatures that kept rodents away. Not much better than them, but still. Why, before Louis Wain, it was shameful to say that you even liked your cat, Oh goodness, no, I adore my dog, the cat that's the wives. However, it's certainly not so now. And after Wain's drawings, well, it wasn't shameful to say, oh yeah, that's my cat. People started adoring cats. And I believe that to be due to how Louis Wain depicted them in his drawings and paintings. You see, cats were not sly or malignant in them. Rather, they were like playful children, getting up to harmless mischief, sometimes making fools of themselves, but being rather happy-go-lucky. Happy especially. And that did wonders for the cat's reputation. And along with that too, Wain was very active in the wider world, spreading the good of cats. Why, he was the president of the National Cat Club for some time, and he was very altruistic in his efforts. He believed that the club was to further the reputation of cats, and would get very annoyed if there were petty fights, or if people tried to put themselves before the cats. Because, the club was for the cats, it wasn't for the people. If you've been a part of a 4-H club, you'll probably know the sorts of arguments that occurred at the National Cat Club. Bless them. And along with this, Louis Wain would discuss his knowledge of cats with anyone who would listen. As Wain put it, the knowledge and care of cats, practical pussyology. There's a joke somewhere in there. But as he so said it, practical pussyology involved keeping a bit of grass inside for your cat to run to and eat, for it was vital for their health. Keeping them well fed, and giving them a nest made up of torn-up newspaper for them to sleep in. To put oranges wherever you didn't wish them to go, for that would certainly drive them away. And even not to strike your cat, for simply talking harshly to them will let them know that they did wrong. For they're very intelligent emotionally, you see. And along with this too, he even claimed that having a cat around can help you with small maladies like headaches or stress, as they could simply reduce it. Oh, and along with this, they had very small, weak brains, despite their emotional intelligence, and so you had to be very careful in moving them from one place to another, because the shock of being in a new environment, which is totally different from the one that they were used to, could overload their tiny brains, causing them to have a seizure and die. Louis Wain had some odd ideas, both about cats and, in general, about life. But needless to say, he was very impassioned about the care of cats and treating them well, which, of course, many people weren't at the time. He genuinely adored cats, and through championing treating them with respect and care, he did much for animal welfare just in general. So, with all this being said about his character, we do need to discuss it because, well, it's prevalent. Let's loop back around to Wain's schizophrenia. Now, he had schizophrenia or some very similar illness. I'm a sociologist, not a psychologist, but everything I've read points to schizophrenia. Now, there are some people nowadays who try to argue that it was not schizophrenia, it was something else, and they're very impassioned about it. I just say, go with the diagnosis, because having read more about his life, he certainly seemed to, at the very least, suffer hallucinations, which he very much believed were real. And many people from the time who knew Wain were also inclined to believe his diagnosis. There were hallucinations where Wain believed it was raining, when it was certainly not. Or seeing sea serpents, out on the shoreline, which no one else could see. Or believing that it was frighteningly cold outside and that they needed to bundle up when it was the middle of summer. Of course, that final one was much, much later in his life, where he had deteriorated quite a bit. I will say, his artistic talent did not diminish with the advancement of his illness. His paintings were generally, artistically, pretty dang good still. But beyond this little ramble about his schizophrenia, that isn't the major part of this video. All you need to know regarding it is that it made life rather difficult for him mentally, especially later in it. So with that, let us resume our history of Wain and his time in the, as it was so put, Pauper's Asylum. Returning now to where we left off, Louis Wain, certified insane, was sent to Springfield, a pauper's hospital and asylum, and he was noted to be very deluded at the time, but his sisters kept bringing him materials to draw with, and he kept drawing. Fairly well, actually. Very well, actually. In any case, I'll quote directly from the book, Louis Wain, The Man Who Drew Cats, for this next bit. This fellow by the name of Dan Ryder, a notable person at the time, recounted how he found Wain at Springfield. I was on a committee that had to make a number of visits to asylums. During one of these visits, I was passing up and down a corridor when I noticed a quiet little man drawing cats. I went up to inspect his work. "Good Lord, man, you draw like Louis Wain." "I am Louis Wain," replied the patient. "You're not, you know," I exclaimed. "But I am," said the artist, and he was. Ryder was rather surprised and disturbed by Wain's state. Why, being in a pauper's hospital with little money to him, not very comfortable either. So, he decided to help. And with the help of many, many influential people, Ryder set up a fund for Wain and later his family. And people responded en masse. So many adults who grew up with Wain's pictures wanted to show their gratitude for the man who gave them, well, much pleasure and much delight with his art. Why, even the Prime Minister at the time, Ramsay MacDonald, got involved and transferred Louis to Bethlehem Hospital. After that, there was a second round of donations, and even more money was raised. Let us return to this drawing, the drawing that he produced during his time at Bethlehem. I am happy because everyone loves me. Now, as I've said, Louis Wain had a very tough life. He was physically and mentally weak, His wife died very early in their marriage, and his father also died early in his life, leaving him to support his mother and sisters. He had constant financial worries, and yet he rarely complained and kept a positive outlook on life. His delightful drawings brought joy to entire generations. So many people did so much to help the reputation of cats worldwide. And he lent his talents to many charities, and much of the work he produced he gave away for a simple good deed. People did love him, and that was shown throughout his life. Many accepted his work in exchange for utilities, rent, food, services, so on, when they very well could have said no. They loved Louis Wain and wanted to support him. As it can be seen later in his life, while he was institutionalized, many people donated their time or their money to help he and his remaining family be comfortable in their twilight years. With that, this drawing still holds an immense amount of emotion. However, rather than sadness, at least it's not mostly sadness anymore, it's more about joy given and joy received by Louis Wain. I lack the proper words, so hopefully this video expresses how I feel. And with it, Louis Wain hopefully will become at least somewhat better known. I believe him to be a man worth remembering. A man who did much to help people, and cats, despite his very difficult circumstances. He truly was a man who was happy, because everyone loved him.